Welcome, young entrepreneurs, to the very first Young Entrepreneurs Network podcast. And today is a very special guest. We have Jon Maloney here. He's working on a lot of different things. He's working on a personal, not even a personal brand. What would you call this? Would it be more of a brand? Because it's not a business. A brand.
Yeah.
Because it's not really a business yet. You were talking about that.
Yeah, it's something I'm super passionate about, and I've built it into, it's a brand right now, and I want it to be a sustainable business. To what degree, I'm not sure exactly yet, but what I'm having to offer and what I'm bringing to the table is something that I'm so passionate about, and I think that society would benefit from greatly. That's my primary drive at the moment. So
go into your credibility here, because we were talking about this before, and it's really impressive where you've gotten, through the school system, how far you've gotten, because it doesn't happen that often.
Yeah.
So go into a little bit on your background in here, because you are a pretty credible source.
Okay. Yeah. So just to establish a little bit of credibility for those of you watching. I'm currently a PhD candidate at Northern Illinois University, working on as we've discussed, working on a doctoral degree in physics. Primarily my focus is in high energy theory, so like fundamental particle interactions. A lot of you have heard about the Large Hadron Collider in Europe right now.
I love that thing.
So yeah, it's currently in shutdown. And unfortunately, we didn't discover a whole lot of interesting physics out of it. We did discover the Higgs boson, but not a whole lot of anything else, which is actually pretty bad for the community, unfortunately. But anyway, those are experiments. So there's a lot of experimentalists there who are gathering the data, actually a part of the large experiment. But many of the experiments, they are directed by theoretical work. So this is the mathematical underpinning of everything that we know to date about how fundamental particles interact with each other. So it's very complex.
So you're into complex stuff here.
I'm into complex stuff. Yeah, it's taken years and years to study and to get to this level.
So you have a you're going for a PhD right now.
Yeah.
And do you expect to get doctors, or how does that work? And is a PhD kind of the last step to your school journey?
Yeah, I mean, after you earn a PhD, that's basically it. I mean, you would go on if you want to stay in.
So that was a dumb question by
No, it's all good. Yeah, it's you reach a ceiling, and after that, if you want to go on into academia, there's a number of steps. Like you go on to go to postdoc, and then you would get some sort of academic position after that. But similar to in medicine, a postdocing is similar to like residency if you got a med degree.
Okay. So degree. PhD is the last rung for you.
It's the last rung for me, and to be honest with you, I don't even know if I'll stay in physics. I'm doing this because I'm super nerdy. I love science so much. And I decided a long time ago that I wanted to get a PhD, and I'm just doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but now you've created this brand that we're talking about here, called Think Critically.
No, actually, well, Think Critically is a slogan. Yeah,
that's right.
So the brand is Intelligent Speculation.
Intelligent Speculation.
Yeah.
And, what is this? Like, what is it? Just give us the rundown here.
Okay, so Intelligent Speculation was founded on the belief that if I was able to communicate a proper set of like critical thinking skills to more people, that it would help to make the world a little bit better. So if I could teach people how to think better, thinking better would lead to better outcomes, and these better outcomes would make society better overall. Because right now, I mean, we have a war on information. People are going to YouTube and thinking that all of these YouTube videos are real and that the information is to be trusted.
Flat Earth.
Flat Earth.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in flat Earth.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Anti-vaccine movements, anti-GMO movements. There's a lot of misinformation. The science is being misrepresented, and it's pretty disheartening. And for a while too, I was kind of on the fence about whether or not I should believe the science regarding genetically modified foods and vaccines. I really was. And then I just kind of dug more into, so going back to critical thinking, I dug more into critical thinking, and there is a subset of philosophy known as logic, and there's a whole bunch of tools there that are great for thinking. And implementing those, and I finally was able to realize the flaws and where I was going wrong. Because, I mean, honestly, collectively, the scientific community, like some of the brightest minds on the planet. And for me, even though I'm kind of a smart person, to think that somehow I had secret information that these
you had
people
a leg up on these
I
scientists.
had a leg up on this entire community. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. I was wrong. I was suffering from what's known as the Dunning-Kruger Effect, which is a cognitive bias, and we'll get into those later. But anyway, yeah, it's been an interesting journey. Yeah.
So essentially,
Overall,
you want to teach people how to think critically.
Yeah, I want
to be able to make better decisions in their life, in their business, and newsworthy.
Yeah, I mean, in all facets of your life, not just business, although it is very much applicable in business, right? Everyone in business is looking to get the leg up or the next edge because you want to make a little bit more money, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, you cannot do that unless you are making the best decisions possible.
Right.
And again, I say best, but at the time, that may be the best decision at the time. Later on, you may discover a little bit better. But anyway, learning a better or a critical thinking, having that tool set to make these decisions, I definitely see benefit not only in business but all aspects of life. I mean, definitely a spillover effect there.
And I think you were talking about this, that there's concrete rules.
Yeah.
To your philosophy, essentially, of critical thinking.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are these yours? Are these your rules that you have?
So these laws of critical thinking that I've put together are my own personal philosophy of what it means to be a critical thinker. And you can go to other sources and whatnot, and there will be some degree of overlap, but based off of everything that I've seen available, there's a whole community of they call themselves skeptics. And I think that being a skeptic it's good, but being a critical thinker is better, in my opinion, because you're getting access to a wider tool set. Not to say that skeptics don't use these, but sometimes the two become conflated. But anyway, where I was going with that is critical thinking, tool sets.
Yeah.
It would be better for society.
Better for society.
Yeah.
So going to these rules. Yeah. So what are the rules here?
Okay, rules.
Laws, you call them.
Yeah, so the 8 laws of critical thinking. So the first law of critical thinking is going to be you have to understand what a good argument is. And so the easiest analogy that I can use, and for those that are looking at home or watching from home, is that if I went around a room and I asked everybody in the room, what is 2 plus 2? They would all say
5.
Yep, 5. No, wrong. They would say 2 plus 2 is 4 because we all learned basic mathematical logic from our education system.
Right.
They taught that to us. However, if you went around the same group of people and you were like, okay, what is an argument? They would be like, what do you mean? That's when 2 people are yelling at each other, or somebody over here would say something different. They wouldn't exactly be able to communicate to you what an argument is. Although from logic, there's a strict definition of what an argument is. And then if I went on and I said, okay, well, what is a good argument versus what is a bad argument? Nobody would be able to answer that.
So nobody knows.
Well, I would say nobody knows. Obviously, people have thought about these things, but you weren't taught this from your basic schooling system.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, you have to understand the first law. So is what is a good argument, and that comes from logic. That's a very strict definition of what they are. And again, you can find all of this stuff. I've written about all of this on my website, intelligentspeculation.com, because there's levels to it. So I don't want to go into it.
So it's complicated. It's more than just like having facts.
Yeah. It's there's an entire structure to it. You have to understand what the structure of an argument is, and then after you get past that, you have to go a little bit deeper, and you have to understand the different types of arguments, deductive versus inductive arguments. So there's some jargon that comes along with it, but then, I mean, it's not super complicated.
I usually just headlock somebody,
yeah,
and they usually bend down to what I'm trying to say. So I usually win the arguments that way. Is that part of the
No, you definitely.
Argument?
I mean that is a way to win a debate, but I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that you'd definitely be cheating. There's no integrity there.
Okay,
Come on, you got to have high integrity.
Got
okay,
it.
that's really, really
Fair
important.
enough. Learning integrity.
Yep.
One step at a time.
One step at a time. Okay, so that's the first law.
Okay.
And then the second law is going to be you need to have a good understanding of informal logic. And actually, if you look on the laws that I have posted, it uses the word grok, which is a great science fiction term that we've co-opted into everyday vocabulary. And it means that you have to have a deep and intuitive understanding of it. And informal logic is, you need to know what like logical fallacies are. Then you need to be fluent in the structure of an argument. So that ties a little bit into number one. You need to know the different types of arguments, the deductive versus inductive. There's actually a third type, but it's not very common. So those are the two primary types of arguments. But you need to have an intuitive understanding of this. So that would be the second law of critical thinking. The third law of critical thinking is going to be understanding heuristics, which is...
Heuristics?
Heuristics. It's with an H. H-E-U-R-I-S-T-I-C.
Okay.
S. Yeah, heuristics. It's a little bit of a tongue twister. But anyway, this stems from psychology, and essentially what these are mental shortcuts. So just kind of rules of thumb that the brain has developed, so that way when you're making quick decisions, you don't have to go through this lengthy process. And unfortunately, these shortcuts can lead to very bad errors, inaccuracies in our judgment, and they're known as cognitive biases. So, I mentioned earlier the Dunning-Kruger Effect. Okay,
Yeah.
So the Dunning-Kruger Effect is a cognitive bias, and basically it affects everyone to some degree. But those who, like on a particular topic, let's say, going back to my example on like genetically modified foods and vaccines, and I was concerned about safety. So I was low information. I didn't realize that though. And because I was low information, I drastically overestimated how much I knew about it. So I felt like an expert even though I wasn't. And then as I learned more and more, I realized how misinformed I was, and I became less competent in what I knew. So there's this interesting graphic, and I've written an entire article about it, and you can see the graph in there. Is that the less you know, the more you think you know. And then as you learn more, the more you become uncomfortable with how little you actually know.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's an example of a cognitive bias that a lot of people experience.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
it makes sense though.
There are like 200 or something different types of cognitive biases that have been identified. And I'm not sure if I'll go into all of them, but I definitely think that people should know like the top 30 or 40 or something.
Yeah.
At least on the average everyday person.
Being able to use those on a daily basis.
Yeah, being able, not use them, but to recognize them. I mean, it's crazy to think about how your mind is inherently flawed. Doesn't that make you slightly uncomfortable? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes me really uncomfortable, right? Yeah. At the same time, too, it's kind of, it gives you a slight excuse to not be so hard on yourself, too, knowing that you can't be perfect. But it also makes me slightly uncomfortable as somebody who really likes being in control, that I can't know everything, and my mind has limitations.
Right.
Yeah, so
that's really interesting.
Yeah, but the research is very solid, decades worth, and it's just kind of nutty, to be honest with you. But people need to know about these things because you can minimize them. So you can't get rid of them completely, but you can minimize them. Once you are aware that they exist, then you can critically analyze or think critically about decisions that you're making, and then seeing if they're creeping up and causing you to make to move in a poor decision or poor direction.
Interesting.
Okay.
So, what about flat Earth? So, we kind of talked about it a little while ago, but
yeah,
with flat Earth, where can you give me like an example of using what you were talking about, like the reasoning and
so people like flat earthers are probably people who don't even have an advanced degree, so they have a high school education, and then they go onto YouTube, they educate themselves on all of these YouTube videos that talk about flat Earth. Then they'll do Google searches on flat Earth, because that people make flat Earth website. There's a flat Earth society, for God's sakes. Yeah. And then they're like, yeah, I would know more than NASA. It's all a conspiracy.
Right.
It's like, come on. Like, the entire world's governments have collaborated to disprove that,
definitely possible,
to hide the fact that the Earth is flat. Like, come on, there's no benefit of doing that whatsoever. And then we've also talked about this before, that there's a complete rift in the logic because everything else is allowed to be a sphere or round in nature. So they will admit that the moon is round. They will admit that the sun is round, that Mars is round, that every other planet and everything that we observe is round, but the Earth is flat. I mean, it's
crazy.
It's just insane. Yeah, don't get your science facts from BYOB or whatever his name is, that one rapper who's promoting flat Earth. Yeah, don't do that. Or celebrities in general. I mean, because you have like Jenny McCarthy as an anti-vaxxer, and and again, I mean, I understand that community because I was involved with it for a while. My background is in, well, I should say my background, but my mother was a holistic dentist, and I was involved with the holistic community. And there's a lot of good things. They talk about prevention, disease risk mitigation. These make sense. Unfortunately, there's a lot of nonsense that's interwoven into it, such as irrational fears of genetically modified foods and vaccines. So
interesting.
It's unfortunate.
So keep going with these laws.
Okay, yeah. All right, let's see here. We were on number 4. Number 4, yeah. So be intellectually humble, which basically means that you're not going to know everything.
And that you need to work on that one.
Yeah. So being intellectually humble, that you're not going to know everything, and then you need to be comfortable with admitting when you're wrong as well. Again, you're not going to be right all of the time. Your mind is inherently flawed when you are wrong and you get called out on it, and the evidence is there to support it.
No headlocks.
Don't do a headlock. Don't grip into your position even further. No headlocks. Just kind of just take it in and let it go. You're going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to make you uncomfortable for sure. It's definitely going to make you uncomfortable because when you have your worldview challenged and you're like, oh, God, I invested so much time and energy in this, and now it's not working out.
I think that's a lot of like entrepreneurs are dealing with that every day. They're like doing one thing that's their worldview, and it's not working, and then they have to shift their entire worldview. It's not just like, I need to solve this problem. You're like literally shifting your entire mindset on business practices and all these different things. And it's young, especially this young entrepreneurs group. As we're just getting started into our business, everything is like the entire businesses are shifting sometimes so quickly. So being able to just admit it, say you're wrong, and you screwed up. Your logic was wrong, and now it's time to move on. Yeah, and it's really important for entrepreneurs once they recognize that they are pursuing a path that's not working, that they pivot. Because the longer you pursue down a path that you know is not working, you're losing money. It's just a waste of everything. Yep. You're just wasting so much. Yep. And that's a good point. So I've got an interesting story about that. Yeah. So I'll go into it a little bit. Oh, yeah. Okay. So my background, when I was talking about holistic dentistry and whatnot, I got involved with a holistic wellness center approximately 3 years ago. What was it? Summer 2014. So that's a little longer than that is when I first started building it, but it didn't actually open until the fall of 2015. It was actually here in Naperville. It was called the Energy Bar. And I had met a gentleman who wanted to open a wellness center through my mom. It was a mutual contact. Anyway, we spent a long time building it, and in the beginning, everything was going great because he was really super big into trying to incorporate the science. And then as time went on, things lingered. I eventually had to step down as a general manager, which was a good choice at the time because I just wasn't happy. But we had like huge disagreements over like the overall philosophy of the center. And he, just to be clear, he was the equity in it. Yeah. And you had sweat equity, correct? Yeah, correct. I had sweat equity, and then he was the primary shareholder. Yeah. Yeah. And he was the money guy. Yeah. Yeah. He was the money guy. Great mentor though. I mean, I learned a lot from him. Were you guys 50-50 in the business, or was it his business? You were the management. So, or you partners? Well, we like to refer to each other as partners, but on paperwork, it was definitely his business. Okay. I mean, and I had sweat equity. Sure. I was hopeful to make it successful in moving forward. Yeah. That each new center that opened up, that I would get more and more equity. But I was just grateful to be a part of this startup, well-funded startup, You're excited.
I was
something
super
new,
excited
you
about
got
it. Yeah, I was really passionate about the mission too. We were trying to encourage people to change the way that they were living their lives from a health standpoint.
Yeah.
But anyway, I ended up having to walk away because the business needed to pivot, and the decision to do that was not being made, and he was being distant. And because I, stepped out of the general management role, and I was involved with other things because I had to.
What were some of the issues? Let's get real practical here.
Okay.
So for anyone that owns a business here and they have some issues, let's go into it a little bit.
Okay.
So what were some issues, and what do you wish you would have, what do you think should have happened that you think kind of changed the trajectory of it?
So obviously I'm at fault too, right?
Sure.
I mean, in any sort of relationship, it's never going to be binary, 100% one person's fault, 0% the other, right?
Yeah.
Okay. However, I want you that are watching this to take this in mind too, that I have a bias towards myself. So the story that I'm about to tell, I'm going to try to be as objective as possible, but it's probably going to be slightly favored in my direction.
Sure,
okay.
sure.
And that goes into the critical thinking. So
good context.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, communication was a big issue for us. It was a huge issue. And every time I tried to sit down and have a talk with him about my fears of the business not heading in the right direction or not being incorporated enough, it felt like I was talking to a brick wall.
Yeah.
Like I just felt like I wasn't getting any sort of feedback, and he was being super distant.
Do you think that he thought that it was going to be successful? Or do you think he thought the ship was sinking? And
no, he didn't. He was way too optimistic, in my opinion. And he had adopted this like grandiose leader type mindset where it's like, I can do whatever I want and just keep throwing money at it because I've been successful, even though he made all of his money off of B2B manufacturing. And this was B2C, like wellness center. And he was
complete difference.
Yeah, he was printing pharmaceutical inserts. So technically it's health related, but not really. It was mostly manufacturing, and then he wanted to get into healthcare.
Yeah.
I mean, those are completely two different industries. You're talking about B2B, and then this is B2C. So
the trajectory of the business was what? What were you guys doing? And where was your exact hey, this is an issue, we need to change it, and then that didn't change? Yeah,
we didn't have, in my opinion, we needed to have an authority figure in the center, a health authority figure. Originally, we had a wellness coach or something of that nature.
Okay.
And to me, it didn't work out. The first individual that we hired, we ended up having to let go for reasons that I won't disclose here. But yeah, it just turned out to not be a good employee. Then we tried somebody else, and then it just wasn't working out the way that we wanted it to.
Yeah.
And then so they got rid of her, and then had nobody. And I was like, okay, well, we needed somebody to anchor, to upsell these people, other than we had wellness technicians.
Okay.
And authority figures like white coats, like MDs, a physician's assistant. Yeah, something with a doctor, like a legitimate doctor, a credibility source people look to, and they'd be like, okay, yeah, I need this, I need that. And when I say upsell, I'm saying I wasn't trying to sell people BS. I would like them to sit down with an actual practitioner, and if the practitioner feels as though
this is what you need,
then you can go and do that. You have all of these modalities at your disposal. Mm-hmm. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to bring in a chiropractor. Okay, a chiropractor who is more science-based. Because you can find chiropractors out there who are anti-vaccine and whatnot.
Right.
But I wanted to bring somebody up who was more science-based. I was going to find them, and then we were going to not only bring in a doctor to the center, but also going to then be able to incorporate insurance, which is huge because to that point we were only cash-based. And to sell at the level that we needed to sell,
limits your audience.
Yeah, and our overhead was massive. So it's like, we need to get insurance in here because we need more revenue.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, I mean, this was my idea, and I broached the subject 2 months before I decided to leave. And it was an entire year before the business actually closed its doors. So there's still plenty of time to pivot and go down a new direction. And we did not do that. And like I said, I had to walk away because I was like, I just threw my hands up. I was like, why am I even here? You're not even listening to me. And we're clearly we're clearly failing here. I mean, we're still well below our break-even point. We have X amount of dollars left in the pool before we run out of money. And you're just going, oh, we just need to go out and sell more, when it is quite apparent to me that the community doesn't like what we have to offer.
The market was speaking, and there was no reaction to it.
Yeah.
So how were you getting leads? How were you getting people through the door? What was the marketing strategy?
So we were doing a bunch of like social media marketing. We were going out and doing events for the community. Our technicians at the time were going like very active in the Naperville Chamber of Commerce. We were trying to network with various health authority figures in the Naperville area. And part of my apprehension to doing this was that we didn't have a center that was concrete, founded on science. We had a bunch of nonsense that was injected into it.
Just a couple $10, $20 employees trying to...
Yeah, I mean, like, why would anyone come to a health center where you have some 20-year-olds with bachelor's degrees to get like medical care?
Right.
I mean, it wasn't strictly medical, but it certainly wasn't like personal training.
There was not like an 80% like, here's your stake.
Yeah, it's just, it needed to be more professional.
Yeah.
And it was in a medical building, so we needed to give a medical vibe, and we were failing in that aspect.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
that came crashing down.
So that came crashing down, and then I've just been, so that came crashing down, and I also had a family. I was working with my mom. She had a small dental business, and I was actually a really good office manager because she was pretty scatterbrained, and we made a pretty good team. So I was working that, helping her out, and then through a series of very poor decisions on her part, again, I'm making myself look good, but I mean, I don't know how else you could spin this. Over years, she just she lost it. She just lost the business. So I had nothing to fall back on because I had never gotten a job like a corporate job. So no experience or anything like that. And I just didn't know what to do. So I didn't want to continue to work in health and wellness because I wasn't super thrilled with that. Like, I always liked science and things of that nature.
Yeah.
And at this point too, I felt like I had enough experience to go out and make my mark in the world. Like, I could do something because I had the skill set. So I started delivering pizzas to make some extra cash. And then and then I went back to graduate school to finish my PhD. So it's been 2 years now since I enrolled in my first class back in my PhD program. So I did that. And then I decided spring 2018 that I was going to start intelligent speculation. And around the same time, I transitioned over into serving. So like, I've been serving for a year now. And I've just slowly been putting my life back together, and my time is split between building intelligent speculation, working on my research for my doctorate, and serving on the weekends. Like, I work 7 days a week, just doing stuff.
So you're hustling.
I'm hustling.
Hashtag Gary V. Hustling, baby. That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So
you're building up. You're slowly building up. So you're a true young entrepreneur right now.
I guess.
True young entrepreneur.
I guess. I mean, I certainly have an entrepreneurial spirit. It's undoubtable because I have this drive to go out and create in society. And unlike a lot of entrepreneurs, I say one thing that really separates kind of like my drive, I think, compared to maybe some others, maybe not everyone, I don't know. Maybe I'm just building myself up or something, but like I'm like super motivated by trying to go out and make the world a better place. I know that's kind of corny, but that's why I got involved with the energy bar, because we were going to go out and we were going to
It was exciting.
Yeah, it was super exciting. Like, we were going to go out and we were going to change healthcare because the healthcare system is broken in this country. Okay. Yeah. We have some of the best doctors in the world, but if you look at the healthcare system in this country, compare the really important metrics to other first world countries, we're like dead last. So I was looking to disrupt that, and by teaching people how to make positive lifestyle changes and stuff like that. And then I was so disappointed when I had to walk away. It was one of the hardest things I ever did.
That's entrepreneurship, man. You're just constantly changing, constantly figuring it out as you go. There's lots of failures that happen, and you just got to keep going.
Dude, it was so hard.
All right. I
was devastated.
I think we're getting close here.
Okay.
Give me some last words here, some true words of advice. It seems like you've been through a lot.
Yeah.
You're building up something I think that actually is really special. You know, you're teaching people critical thinking, which is so important in this day and age. So give us some last words of wisdom here from your perspective and your young entrepreneur point of view.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I guess you just got to keep going. There's going to be haters. There's always going to be haters.
Always going to be haters. I don't have any haters. I have nobody that hates me.
Yeah, you keep telling yourself that, buddy. So anyway, for me, you just got to keep at it. When I first started this brand a year ago, I mean, I even had family members who are like, "What are you doing?" And now they're kind of like, "Yeah." And I think that just comes with creating something new. That's part of being a social animal, and you know, having people around you. So I mean, if you're super passionate about something, go get it.
Just keep going.
I mean, I sat down. So I got a buddy who in California is really he's coming up in the stand-up comedy circuit.
Nice.
And I had a conversation with him fall 2015 when he was mulling it over. And he's like, "Oh, I don't know." And I was like, "Dude, you have thought about this for years. You need to go get it. Just go get it." And he went and did it. He finally did it. And that's what I was saying for all of you guys that are listening. Just go get it. I mean, if you are super passionate about something, you feel like you need to do it. At the end of the day, if you try and fail, that is going to feel so much better than the regret of, "Oh, I wish I would have done that."
Yep.
No. Oh man.
I think that was Jeff Bezos when he was starting Amazon. People were like, "Why'd you start it?" and stuff, because he needed all this money and stuff. And he's like, "I just knew that there was going to be regret if I didn't do it, even if I failed."
That's the thing. I mean, okay, the failure rate is high in entrepreneurship. Yeah. We all know that, but you still have to go out there and try, because the regret is just too much to bear.
Taste it. Yeah, you do.
It's too much to bear. And we're certainly a certain personality type, right? So
don't regret.
With our personality types, you got to go get it.
You have to. There's no option. So don't regret. Don't regret. Just do your thing. Keep going. Thank you, Jon. I appreciate it so much. You've been awesome. Great story. Keep it up. And next year, when you become a millionaire, you can come back on the show and give us a bunch of money and stuff.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, young entrepreneurs. We will see you guys later.